The Old Testament reading from the Lectionary for July 24th, 2022, comes from Hosea chapter 1, 2 through 10. Hosea is witnessing the downfall of the northern kingdom of Israel. His time period, according to scholars, takes place roughly between 750 and 721 when Samaria fell. During that time, after a very stable reign of Jeroboam II, Hosea witnessed 7 rulers in that 30-year period. They went one after another after another. The people had gone away from God. They had sought other gods, Baal as being the primary one through Jezebel, but they stopped being obedient to God. And God looks upon the people of Israel and says, you don't understand how painful, how hurtful your betrayal has been. In this context of relationships, we can imagine God as the white knight, Prince Charming, who came in and rescued the damsel Israel from the evil clutches of Pharaoh, took her to him and married her, and promised her a good life and a good home, only to then witness that maiden run after others like Pharaoh over and over and over again. In fact, their unfaithfulness and their betrayal, God labels Israel as a prostitute who has no husband, no home, and no land. And in order to make this clear, he uses the story of Hosea and Gomer. Symbolically, this is a powerful story, portraying Israel, portraying the people who are married to God, ourselves. As every time we seek the world's compliments, the world's applause, every time we seek the world's love, through money, through praise, whatever that may be, we're cheating on God. And it's not that we're dating God, we are married to God, and yet we sleep with the world over and over again. And so he tells Hosea to marry Gomer. As an illustration, it's powerful. When they have children, he names them for the sins that are manifested because of this betrayal. But if you think about Hosea as an actual human being, as an actual person, the story becomes incredibly difficult to read. He asks Hosea to marry a prostitute, to choose Gomer. He asks him to name his children despicable and abusive names. When Gomer runs back to her former life, Hosea goes and buys her over and over again, finds her in other men's homes, and brings her home. If we think about Gomer, Gomer has lived this life, is found in this situation, and suddenly there's a man who says, I'm going to marry you. And she may have rejoiced. She may have been excited. But then Hosea says, well, I married you because God told me to. And then when they begin to have children, he names these children such names as, "You are not my people and I am not your God," or "I will no longer have pity on the house of Israel." These names that he comes up with are just cruel for a daughter, a son, to be named. And Gomer realizes that she's not the center of Hosea's world. God is. And God's naming her children. And their relationship is not based on pure love, but rather on what God demands of Hosea. And at this point, it's hard for me not to have compassion and sympathy with Gomer. Wanting to go back, maybe not to a life of love or security or stability, but at least she understands the rules of the game. What God has asked Homer to do, what's done to Homer's children through their naming, how Gomer is used as an illustration rather than a human being. It is a heart-wrenching story. Powerful in its illustration. Powerful in getting the point across about how we act and how God feels when we act that way. Also, powerful story of redemption, asking Hosea over and over again to redeem Gomer out of her situations that she keeps going back into. But still, Homer, for me, is one of the most difficult prophets. Not because of the symbolism, which I think cuts straight to the heart of our relationship with God. Not for the message that shows us how our actions betray our relationship with God, but rather it is incredibly difficult because of the lives of Homer and of Hosea and Gomer and their children. As you read Hosea, remember the symbolism. Remember that it's God who is Hosea, and it's Israel who is Gomer. Try to remember that.